Oura Ring 5 is finally here. But after 365 days with Oura Ring 4, we realized something surprising. The hardware was never the most important part.
Over the past year, we've used Oura Ring 4 almost every single day. This thing is awesome. It tracks sleep, recovery, our stress, and so much more. And for us, that matters because we're not chasing perfect scores. We're cancer survivors now trying to build the strongest, healthiest second half of life we can.
So now that Ring 5 is here, the real question is simple. Would any of these upgrades actually help us do that?
When we first got Oura Ring 4, we thought the scores would finally give us clear answers about how our bodies were responding to the choices we were making.
But early on, we started treating the app like a report card. A high score meant we were healthy. A low score, I guess it meant like we failed that day somehow. It kind of got exhausting fast.
It almost became a self-fulfilling prophecy. At one point, we were basically letting this titanium mood ring decide how we felt every morning.
A titanium mood ring. Yeah, our titanium mood ring scores would feel amazing when they were high, and a low score would just completely throw our mood off for the rest of the day.
Wreck the entire day. The ring became far more useful once we stopped chasing perfect scores and instead looked for repeated patterns.
Before we go about deciding whether Ring 5 is worth upgrading to or not, we need to talk about the Ring 4 scores that actually mattered after a full year. Because some of them fooled us at first. Honestly, part of the problem may have been that we spent the entire year paying attention to the wrong numbers.
The first big lesson was realizing that not every score deserved the same amount of emotional energy. Sometimes the sleep score looked great, but we felt exhausted. Sometimes readiness told us to slow down when we really wanted to push harder. The numbers did not always match how we felt in the moment.
Yeah, there were mornings where Oura told us we slept great. And meanwhile, we're standing in the kitchen staring at our mud waters like zombies, wondering why we still feel so exhausted. We stopped treating the scores like the final answers and started using them as clues. The scores themselves mattered less than the patterns behind it.
And if you've ever stared at your Oura dashboard, wondering what those numbers are supposed to tell you, hold on to that thought because we'll come back to it later. But first, let's share the metric that became the most valuable over time, HRV.
HRV was confusing for me at first. I'd have crowns on both my activity score and my sleep score, but somehow my readiness score was still low. I couldn't understand it. It wasn't making sense. I remember looking at the app thinking, this thing is broken.
Over time, we realized the real value was not the daily number. It was the trend over weeks. HRV helped us look backward at what happened and then adjust what we did next.
Yeah, at 50 or approaching 50, we care less about chasing optimization and more about protecting things like energy, recovery, and most importantly, that independence that we want well beyond our 80s. So that brings us to Ring 5, because now we finally have to ask whether any of these new upgrades would have changed our experiences over the past year.
That became the real test for Ring 5. Would any of these upgrades actually change our behavior or just make the ring feel newer?
Let's talk quickly about Ring 5. They say Ring 5 is thinner, lighter, and more durable. It has a slightly better battery life and introduces a stronger AI software ecosystem around the app experience.
Now, to be fair, there were definitely moments where battery life got annoying.
Yes.
Both of us have had to reach out to Oura and now have replacement rings.
So while some of those upgrades sounded really exciting at first, for example, a thinner ring would be great at the gym, but after a year with Ring 4, we realized that most of the things that actually changed our behavior had very little to do with the hardware itself. So while the thinner design might genuinely matter if Ring 4 bothers you physically, the better battery life obviously is nice, but the biggest value for us still came from learning how to interpret the data consistently.
But we still haven't answered the real question, which is, after 365 days with Ring 4, would we actually upgrade?
So for us, the answer became obvious. If your Ring 4 still feels comfortable, if your battery is still solid, and if you mainly care about the software insights, there's a very strong argument for keeping Ring 4.
However, if Ring 4 feels bulky, annoys you at night, scratches easily, or the battery frustrates you, then Ring 5 probably makes a lot more sense. But the surprising thing is that after a year, the most important part of Oura was never the hardware. It was the constant attention it created around the important data points like sleep, stress, recovery, and consistency. So, would Ring 5 actually help us do what we're trying to do? In some cases, yes. If comfort, battery life, or wearability are getting in your way, Ring 5 could absolutely help. But after 365 days, we learned that the biggest gains never came from new hardware. They came from understanding the patterns.
But the truth is, a wearable can't create your health for you. It can't lift the weights, it can't choose what you consume, or put you to bed on time. It can only reflect the habits you're already building. The biggest thing Oura taught us wasn't how we slept. It taught us that the future version of us is being built long before we feel the results. The Ring just gave us a way to see those investments happening in real time. So if you're looking at your Oura dashboard, wondering what all these numbers are actually supposed to tell you, watch this video right here, because after a year with Oura, we realized most people are staring at their scores without actually understanding the ones that give those numbers meaning.